Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Favorite Comics. This is the show where I go through my favorite comics, and we're nearing the end. This is episode 14, and we are doing 16 episodes. We have one more main episode and a bonus one about some honorable mentions. But this week, venture with me back to a bygone era of the 1950s as we enter into the world of domestic bliss for the comic book Lady Killer. Now, Lady Killer is a mini-series that was developed a few years back from the talented and brilliant mind of Joelle Jones, probably one of the best creatives working in the comic book industry today, and this book kind of set her up to become one of the coolest people working. I think, wholeheartedly, this is one of the best-looking books I have ever read. First off, it plays in an aesthetic that I severely enjoy, and that is like this 1950s American dream, domestic bliss suburbia, where everything's just like polished and stylized. You got like the retro style furniture and food packaging, and like that classic nuclear family era of everything, where it looks perfect, but there's like so much shady stuff behind the scenes, and that time period perfectly fits in well to the kind of art style that Joelle is known for doing. Like her visual making of all her stuff, like the line work, the colors that pop. It is perfectly summed up for that time period and that world aesthetic. It looked absolutely gorgeous. So I love that time period. I love that idea of like the domestic housewife feeling, and then having that character become something more than just a housewife. That is the coolest thing in the world to me. I say this a lot when we're talking about like my favorite comic books, but if I was ever given the opportunity where somebody at like a streaming service or a studio said, hey, we're trying to buy some IP to make a new comic book into like a series and stuff, do you got any ideas? My first thought would be do Lady Killer, because this sets up perfectly for a film or a television series. It is brilliant. So for those of you who don't know what Lady Killer is, imagine it's the 1950s world. The perfect housewife, Josie Schuler, she's helping her kids out. She's like a loving, supportive wife. She is just the domestic goddess that everybody wants and everybody admires. She's perfect, she's prim, she's proper, she has everything going for her. But secretly, she's a killer. She is an assassin signed by an organization that she once forgotten, and now she has come back into the world to take on some new threats and everything. It is incredibly fun. It balances the right tone between the two. When you're doing a story like this, you either go too comedic, too serious, but right in the middle, somewhere right in the middle of those two tones, you have Lady Killer. It's fun, it's lighthearted, it has the brevity of like, oh, the housewife's cleaning the blood off her hands while the husband comes in, doesn't even notice because he's off in his own little world. I like that feeling. I like too that you actually feel the relationship and love between the two, like people that are married, like Josie and her husband. You feel their love and their connection. It works really well. And just the aesthetic works for both of these things. Like I said, the aesthetic works for the 50s. Joelle's style works for the 50s. It also works for that like assassin, spy, espionage feel, because it's like jaded lines, very crisp, very clean, and you're getting some very colorful and cool characters. One of the things I love pointing out, especially when it comes to this style, and something that Joelle Jones is kind of known for in her artwork, I think, is just like these perfectly encapsulated, distilled versions of like fashion. Like, you can see it in all of her other works, too. There's, like, a clear understanding of how a suit looks, how a costume looks. And when you come to this style where everything has that distinctive personality in its clothing, you are allowed to play in, like, this expansive feel and do so many great and unique things. I'm definitely going to put up a lot of pictures of, like, the styles and the fashion that the characters wear, because it's so gorgeous just to see the way those colors pop and look and everything works for this aesthetic. It is so fun. Such a creative endeavor that I'm just blown away by every time I look at this book. They recently released this huge hardcover with the entirety of the book wrapped into it. It looks gorgeous and so prestigious. It's such a fun book. Just that balance of doing like the domestic housewife. I'm cooking dinner for the kids. We're going to the beach and having fun. Just copped with like, I'm going to go to a party, probably a strip club, just kill a bunch of dudes, fight for my life, come back to the house, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. That is such a fun feeling that plays very well in this world. And when the story just progresses and kind of spirals out of control, where she like has to defend the house and how like the mother-in-law feels about some stuff like this and everything comes together, it is absolutely fun. It is so interesting and creative and a beautiful story that pulls itself together in such a creatively fun and interesting way. It's like one of those rare comics that just perfectly understands the tone it was going for and encapsulated that perfectly. I think it's incredibly fun and lighthearted because of that. It's unique in its feeling, it's experimental in its storytelling, and you just feel for the character of Josie and everything else in her world around her. It just perfectly encapsulates something brilliant for the time period and the style, and I really just enjoy it. You know, it's my favorite comic, of course, but it's like one of those books that when I ever just think about it, there isn't a moment where I'm thinking about it where I go, this sucks. I'm just like, it is so gorgeous. It's such brilliant artwork, and I love the way Joelle Jones just draws stuff. It looks so gorgeous and clean and just makes you feel so many brilliant and bright things because of how it looks and how it feels. Lady Killer is fantastic. It's such a fun, lighthearted book that goes in directions that you're familiar with. This isn't some breaking new ground story, but it goes in these directions that are just so, yeah, I'd expect that to happen in a book like this. Like, it doesn't hold anything back. It knows exactly what it's going for, and that is such a cool feeling to have sometimes when you have a book like this. There's just something very special and unique and distinctive about Lady Killer that just holds up so well when you reread it and you get back into that world. It's so crisp and clean, and I think it's so fun. The variant covers for this book are incredible. Every time you look at like a picture or a cover for this series, you instantly can tell what it is trying to say. It's fun, it's lighthearted, it's definitely written from a woman's perspective, which I really appreciate that, because this idea, it's not lost on us that this idea has been done by a male before, but just the idea that, yeah, it's going to those directions that a male creator would take it, but the fact that it's a female creator, it kind of adds a little extra oomph to each scene and each moment with that character, because you wouldn't expect it to go this route, or going this route would be differently if it was done by a different creator. Everything about it just works perfectly, and it's distilled into like a perfect few books for you to pick up and enjoy. It's creative, it is fun, it is different than anything you are going to read on the shelves today. It is such a great piece. I would hearken it to something like that TV show Why Women Kill, which is such a fun and interesting book. You know, it's just like, here it is, we're going to kill the men, we get it, we can have our jokes, we can have our fun, but we're also going to go to those dark, scary places that people enjoy. It's the best of two worlds. It's the best of like the spy espionage world that people have like a fascination and appreciation for. It's also the best of like the 1950s domestic bliss story, which people also have a fascination and an interest for. It does both so perfectly, and it balances together in such a poignant and cool way that I think a lot of people are going to be impressed with what this presents to you, because there's really nothing else like it, and it's great. I recommend picking it up. It's one of those rare ones, just from Dark Horse, where it's different in its portrayal than a lot of stuff you see from the company, but it's also just like, we got it. Killers, assassins, we're fighting for our lives, we're wearing cool skimpy outfits like to control the men in our lives, but also we're going to wear cool fashion styles and dresses and blouses and everything from the 50s, all put together in this beautiful style from Joelle Jones, who is just blown up in the comic book industry today and has become such a creative talent and a force to be reckoned with in this industry. This is such a fun book that shows where she is going to go and how far she has come. Lady Killer, it is damn worth your time. It is damn worth the fun it is going to bring you, and that is why it is one of my favorite comics. And this episode's a little shorter, but so's the book, so's the fun it can bring you, and you're going to enjoy your time. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, all that good stuff. And if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, please give us a rating over there. It definitely helps out. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.